Good afternoon. It is Saturday, April the 20th. It is 2 p.m., the 20th of 2019. And I'm Leon Davis, and you're listening to my podcast, Altitude Adjustment. It is an absolutely beautiful day in St. Louis. The temperature is in the 60s and rising. I don't know how much longer that's going to be. I've forgotten what the high was going to be today. But it's going to be a beautiful day. And then after I finish up the podcast, I'm going to go outside and put some meat on the grill and have a really wonderful time. Right now, we're having, so a lot of the discussions that we've been having in the past have kind of been sucked into this black hole of our current national politics. And eventually, one day, we'll have to get back to that. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about particularly was entertainment, and specifically in movies, and that's coming up now. Altitude Adjustment. All righty, so I want to thank you for joining me again this afternoon. And I'm a big movie fan, so some people may know that, and others will obviously not know that. But I'm a huge movie fan, and I like action movies. I like a lot of drama. I like a lot of different kinds of movies, but I want to specifically focus on action movies. Movies like Blade, Jack Reacher, American Gangster, John Wick, New Jack City. Those movies, those types of movies, have been vilified in our society. I have a tendency. I like the action movies. I like the drama. I like well, it's not a whole lot of drama in it. It's a lot of action and shooting and high body count and things like that. And it's art. It's art, and we can debate about whether it's good art or bad art. But if we're going to define it as art, it's art. And so some of the art in our society is gotten a rap for its maybe salaciousness, and while I realize that some art is going to cause a visceral reaction, such as so a friend of mine likes to watch the movie Goliath, or the television series Goliath, and so on occasion we'll sit down and we'll watch a few episodes of that. And in Goliath, there is a character that is a drug lord, and before becoming a drug lord, had gone to medical school, so they have some medical skills. And part of their method of operating is that they take people. He takes people and he amputates good limbs. And I'm not going to go through the whole setup. There's more to it than that, but and that's a part of his thing as a bad guy. He amputates limbs, and so obviously there is some nefariousness there, and it even further than that. But it's so the question then becomes: is that necessary in order to display that art, to make the point that they're trying to make, or if they're even trying to make a point? And one of the things that disturbed me that happened in one episode was another bad guy. So we root for bad guys for bad things to happen to bad guys and good things to happen for the good guys, until we don't. Until we find a bad guy that we like and we want to root for that bad guy, so on and so forth. But anyway, in this particular episode, one of the bad guys that worked with this drug lord, so things had gotten to the point of where the chain of bad is about to be exposed, and so in order to protect themselves, people at the top or this particular drug lord decides they're going to silence the people that could potentially put them in the crosshairs of the legal system. So they abduct this one bad guy that they have been working with, and then we get to see that this drug lord amputated both arms and both legs, and while explaining whatever it was that he wanted to explain to the guy that was on the table who had just had his limbs amputated, that the guy was telling him, "I'll never talk, no matter what." And so then the guy says, "I know," and he uses forceps to grab the guy's tongue, implying that he's about to cut the guy's tongue out. And so I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that seems to be an extreme way to express an idea. And while I realize that that is going to create, so I felt it was unnecessary. I felt it was unnecessary to make a point. But then I realized that, it is art. It should be. It's supposed to be art. It's supposed to be entertainment. While I'm not entertained by that, so the concern then becomes, well, if someone else is entertained by that, we may have a bigger societal problem. And so the question then becomes, what is an acceptable amount of gore or killing, or what is an acceptable behavior for art that we share? And while I like action movies and I like the gunplay and the killing and all that kind of stuff, I don't own a weapon. But that doesn't stop other people from owning weapons who may see this and imitate it. Now, one of the movies that I really like, it is definitely my favorite action movie, is Terminator, the original. And there was some body count there. There was a robot or a cyborg trying to kill people and things like that. But the thing that I got out of the movie was the cyborg wouldn't quit. It was the thing I noticed, or that was important to me about that, was that no quit attitude. That, of course, it was a cyborg, so it was programmed, but that wasn't significant to me. It was that not letting anything stop you from achieving your goals, achieving for your destination. So I could have focused on the killing. I could have focused on the science, man and machine to merge together and those kinds of things. But I chose what part of the movie mattered to me and what I chose to take from that. And so I think that that's important when we get into discussions about art and about the things that we present to one another, is what do you take from that? What do you get out of that? People can draw inspiration from any different thing, from many different things. They can draw inspiration just from watching ants build colonies, and just from a picture of a sunset, and they draw inspiration and ideas. And it's what they choose to do with that inspiration. If they choose to be positive, if they choose to build something on that and do something positive and make it a positive experience, or do they choose to look at aspects of it that are more harmful and play that up? so I know we talk about in our society, we talk about um, glorifying violence. Um, so one of my last podcasts, I talked about um, how we have chosen to um, how we use celebrity in our society, how we build up celebrity to the point of where people believe that celebrity can come from killing and things like that. And so I understand that there may be, so celebrity does not have to be uh, we don't have to have killers like copycat killers who see things on the news, and because it appears that there is a celebration or a recognition of those people, that then becomes acceptable to mimic that. While I'm not a big celebrity type person, I don't follow celebrities, I don't read celebrity news, um I know people that are excited. I see people that are in the eye of the camera, and the things that they say and do and how they behave in front of the camera, and I think those things are important, um, and and they are um, role models, and I've mentioned that. I had a podcast on role models, and so they do have some responsibility. But if someone does something nefarious based on someone else's behavior, you can't always blame the individual. So there's a level of personal responsibility that's necessary, and how we get to that personal responsibility, I think, is important. So the question then becomes, well, if we define that people can't watch hours of John Wick and American Gangster and know that there's a difference between what's shown on the camera and what is real life, then we as a society have to approach, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with the people not recognizing what is reality? And so like in Mission Impossible, there is a scene where Ethan jumps from a helicopter onto a train. Now, we have, in some cases, had to put disclaimers like, do not try this at home. This was done by professional stunt people. And when we've reached that point that even what I think is clearly obvious behavior that is dangerous, that we have to put disclaimers on it, I don't know if art is our problem. I don't know if art is to blame. Art is about it. Movies explore ideas. They explore. There's some of just absolute fun. It's just about experiencing life. It challenges ideas, and if we put all of the burden on art to influence behavior, then we may lose some of the benefits or we may lose a lot of the benefits of art, and then it becomes propaganda. It becomes about, if we neuter art to the point of only showing things that we want reflected in society as a behavior, then we've eliminated opportunities to explore ideas and challenge ourselves beyond where we are, because it comes about making material only for the benefit of controlling behavior, and that's going to be, for me, a concern. And I realize that for other people, they may not see the long-term impact of changing how we or what kind of material that we consume. There has to be some level of personal responsibility to understand what is acceptable in society and what is not. So whether you see on television that a character or a person who was arrested and gets a book deal, and gets notoriety for doing something wrong, that does not mean that is acceptable behavior, that is acceptable societal norms. And one of the questions is how do we make sure we have societal norms? How do we define societal norms? How do we enforce societal norms? Part of our political process, part of the black hole that we're living in, is flouting political norms, societal norms. And there are quite a few people that believed shaking up those norms, challenging those norms in a way that may not have necessarily been constructive, but out of anger or frustration, challenging those norms was a good thing. And so the question then becomes, if it's always challenging the norms in a destructive way, in a way that causes a lot of confusion and angst, if that becomes the way that we challenge norms, how do we build norms? Because there's always someone or some idea that is contrary to what we consider as a norm, but we do that in an attempt to build a cohesive society so that we can function together. Blowing that up, turning that on its head, flying in the face of that, does that have a positive outcome? So there are some people who are elated that quote unquote elites are up in arms about how things are shaking out in our political theater. But those norms are there so that we can have a constructive conversation. And if you do not feel that you're being heard, how do people who feel that they're being ignored get to be heard? So short while ago, there was the protests, protest of in the NFL and Black Lives Matter and other protests, women's rights, that are an attempt to change norms that disproportionately affected different sectors of our society. And so those, while progress may have been slow, and I realize that, progress is the most important aspect of it. People want to be able to see some of the benefits of their work, how things change, and how we build a better society. Societies aren't going to change on a dime. They're not going to, in the course of a few weeks, go in an opposite direction. That doesn't mean you don't strive to achieve that, because if there is someone being marginalized and there's real pain, saying down the road we'll fix it is not an option. It's not workable for those people. And so building a better mousetrap as far as a way to listen to folks, to have ideas implemented. The Green New Deal, which is something I covered in one podcast. There was just such an uproar, but it was parts of it were very constructive. Is it possible to expect everything to be constructive? It's possible to believe that that's possible, but as we're seeing, people have different perceptions of constructive, and unfortunately, I'd hate to think that we'd have to go back and just redefine constructive, but the idea here is to make sure that we're doing things in a way to try to move society in a better direction. And one of the things I said, it's important. I realize that I am fighting for my action movies and my ability to see high body count and some of the things that I think are really fantastic is the special effects. How I have never seen someone a body take a bullet, and I've never seen a severed head. But in the horror movies, when you see these severed, and so the imagination plays a part in believing that this is exactly how it happens. I would not think to go out and sever a head just to find out if that is true or not. And so a horror movie for me can be enjoyable, understanding that no one's head was severed in the making of the movie, and that no one has to go out and actually sever a head for people to be comfortable that the movie is scary. But hopefully we will, after things in our political environment change and go to a less volatile nature, we'll have an opportunity to revisit some of these conversations. There are a lot of issues, I think, that we were addressing as a society that are important, that were moved from the headlines in order to make room for the events that are taking shape in our national politics. hopefully we will get an opportunity to get back to those and then have those discussions on a more calm level, a less. I think some volatility is necessary because there are a lot of emotional angst tied into what people want and how they want to display it. Hopefully, there's enough patience so that we can have the conversation in a rational and reasonable way, so that we can get to some solutions in a short term. But if what we've experienced recently is an indication, it could be quite a long fight. It took several years just to get to the point of we still have people who, are battling over the idea of what is a fact in our current state of affairs on our national politics. So I'm looking forward to getting back to those kinds of conversations. So hopefully we can hash out some reasonable solutions. And in the meantime, I'd like to see some great westerns, more great westerns. I think the western has died. A lot of great horror movies. I miss some of the more slasher. I ain't gonna say slasher. Some more of the horror movies with just better horror movies that you just go ugh. I want to say thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. It has been a great day. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna put a little meat on the grill. I would invite you over, but I only have just a little. But on the next one, I'll make sure that I put a little extra on for you. And again, thank you. Now, this podcast is streamed live each week right here on YouTube. And you are encouraged to participate by asking questions and include your thoughts. To participate, please contact Altitude Adjustment by connecting via Skype at thelionsden.stl@gmail.com or on Google at thelionsden.stl@gmail.com. Also, feel free to connect with me on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, or YouTube. Be sure to look for this and other episodes where you listen to podcasts. And remember, your likes, share, are internet gold. So please like and share this podcast when you find it. Remember to be cool, be calm, and above all, be careful. Look out for the other guy, because they may not be looking.